Jordan and Gretzky, Serena and Ruth. Remembering great ones is easy to do.
But what about the no-names who spent their whole lives long snapping footballs and catching sack flies? They're guys, remember that guy. Remember that guy, remember that guy, remember that guy, remember that guy.
They're just gonna remember some guys now.
First pitch, fly ball, right center field. Series going back, he's at the track, he's at the wall. 40-40, walk-off grand slam. No way. What a moment for Remember That Guy, the show where we mine our memories for nuggets of nostalgia about peripheral players, past and present. Hey there, folks, it is me, still your only host, James. But I'm here with a guest who still, for whatever reason, thinks Shohei Ohtani should only have the 2 MVPs that he has and not 3.
You know what? Shohei, until he wins something, gets nothing from me because...
Oh, did you forget when he beat our country's ass?
Hey, that's Mike Trout's fault, and the fault of Mike Trout being essentially dead as a human being.
No, you're right. I forgot about all of Aaron Judge's World Series titles. My bad, Xavier.
You know what? He has so many that you've blocked them all out of your head and don't remember any of them.
I am very happy for you that now that he is not in the same league as Shohei Ohtani, he can win a non-fraudulent MVP award. Hi, Xavier. Lovely to see you again.
There's a chance that he doubles Ohtani's WAR this year, which is insane.
Which also just proves the flaws within WAR's nature.
I mean, the thing with WAR is that it penalizes you heavily if you're a DH.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
No, I get
because you provide no defensive value whatsoever.
No, for sure. Shohei Ohtani is so much better at baseball than Aaron Judge. And now we can move
Not
on.
right now. If he's not pitching, he's not. I will die on that hill. If Ohtani's pitching, then duh. Because Ohtani's the only person who could do that. If Ohtani is not pitching, he is not the best player in baseball. Because he factually is not. Because he's not the best hitter in baseball. And if he's not playing the field, he cannot be the best player. When he is healthy and pitching, he is the best player. If he can only hit, he's not the best.
Xavier, I don't want you to die on this hill. I don't want to have... We're down one host already. I can't lose another one of you. So we're not going to let you die on this hill. Instead, I'm going to let you tell me what's making memories for you right now.
Yeah, so rather than talk about baseball, I'll talk about the Paralympics because I'm excited about those and everyone else should be as well. Couple things. I'll start off with the American. I read a really good article a couple weeks ago about... Christy Raleigh Crossley, who is a non-binary Paralympian swimmer, and they have a hole in their brain. They had a tumor in their brain that had to be removed that led to a hole in their brain that impacts their nervous system. And the problem, quote unquote, is that because it is a hidden disability, there were a lot of... This article was very much on the side of a lot of like more visually disabled people were essentially claiming that they were faking their disability. Because
to be incredibly pedantic, I feel like we should say visibly impaired and not visually impaired in that case, or disabled.
Yes. So Raleigh Crossley had won a whole bunch of swimming competitions once they started competing in them. They previously were like a close to Olympic level swimmer for the other Olympics, so not super surprising. It's very sad that, you know, there is that possible, that kind of divide between visible and invisible disabilities. But they did compete today. They broke a world record in their heat. They did end up actually only finishing second in the final to Chen Yi of China. China still in the pool. China puts a lot into that. So far, the U.S. does not have any gold medals for the first day. China has 4. I don't really care about golds for the Paralympics. I just care about the fact that they get to compete, which is really cool. And
I will say, I got to touch a golden Paralympic medal when I did that visit at the Babe Ruth house and got to go through the archive. I care about their medals a little bit. And also, just like you said, with compete there, these people do still care about it. Like, there have been a lot of really good writings, I think, recently about using the word compete instead of participate. So, like, let's not besmirch the gold medals, even if China's getting them.
No, definitely not going to denigrate those in any way The one thing that I've been trying to learn and is still, I gotta be honest, is confusing me is so because there are different levels of disability, a lot of these events have different classifications. So there are over 140 different medal events for swimming at the Paralympics.
Yeah.
So just for example, I'm looking at one right now. So the men's 50-meter freestyle swimming has class S3, S4, S5, S7, S9, S10, S11, and S13. So that's 8 different classifications of disability level for one single event. And I've been trying to learn more of what qualifies for each level. I'll be honest, maybe I'm not that bright when it comes to it. I've really struggled. So if someone out there knows and can tell me, please let me know. But I am glad that there are so many different options for people because obviously if you have no legs or are completely visually impaired versus maybe a nervous system disorder, that's a significant difference in terms of competition. So I'm glad that they work as hard as they do to make it as fair or as level a playing field as possible, or at least as much as can be. So that's exciting. The other thing from the Paralympics that I wanted to talk about was actually the women's Taekwondo competition. In the 47 kilogram Taekwondo competition, the championship has not been decided yet because that gold medal match is still to come. But the bronze medal match has happened, and Zakia Hodadi has won the bronze medal. And this is interesting and historic because Zakia is the first member of the refugee team to win a Paralympic medal. Zakia was born in Afghanistan, only has one hand, and she's been competing internationally for a while. She actually had to be airlifted out of Afghanistan by the Royal Australian Air Force as part of rescue efforts when the Taliban reclaimed and took over Afghanistan, because they would have killed her for competing internationally as a woman in sports. So she was airlifted out along with one other Afghani athlete during the fall of Kabul and essentially was resettled in Paris and has competed as part of the refugee team. So it's just imagine going through that, plus also only having one hand and competing in a combat sport at the Paralympics. So absolutely incredible. Very, very happy for her. Super cool.
Congrats on the 3rd place championship.
You have any Paralympic stuff that you want to talk about, James?
I appreciate that you brought it up because, hey, if you are not following Roger Sherman's Substack and getting that newsletter in your inbox, highly recommend it. Email newsletters, pretty much the only thing that works still on the internet now. So I do enjoy all the ones that I've been getting to this time, but he had a portion in the one that came out today. Well, the whole thing is about the Paralympics, but one subheading in particular for it is don't watch for quote unquote them, watch for you. And he talks about this conversation that he had with a paracanoeist, Blake Haxton. And he was asking a lot of Paralympic athletes, hey, why should people watch you guys play? He clarifies the quote that I'm about to read is not a quote exactly. He wasn't recording, so this is a slight paraphrase. But to go with what he said, at some point in your life, there's a pretty solid chance that you or somebody you love will become disabled. It's not fun to think about, but if it happens, there will be certain things you wish you knew, and you can learn those things by watching the Paralympics. So that's what Haxton had to say, and Sherman kind of sums it up by just pointing out, we all may think of ourselves as able-bodied. Nobody is able-bodied forever. I am lucky enough that when I had a pretty bad athletic accident, I was able to come back to more or less full strength at this point. But, I might not be so lucky if such a thing happens again. And I just think that was a very good point, and that is kind of what I will be keeping in mind as I tune into the Paralympics. Hey there, folks. Speaking of bike accidents, about 3 hours after Xavier and I wrapped up recording from this, Columbus Blue Jackets forward Johnny Gaudreau and his brother were biking in New Jersey that Thursday night, and they were killed by a driver. And this was already very affecting to me, someone you all know bikes a lot. And it has stuck with me beyond that as I found out where it happened, which is to say just a couple miles off of somewhere where I have myself biked before. And I want to focus on the language about this for 1 second because the NHL put out a statement referring to the tragic passing of them. And this is tragic, like, to be clear. It is a very tragic thing to have happened. I, however, think that tragic passing mischaracterizes it slightly. These guys were killed. Some of the language will say that they were killed by a car, and I also think that is a mischaracterization. They were killed by a driver, and that driver made a series of incredibly bad and criminally negligent choices that he will not suffer a proportionate amount of consequences for because he happened to be behind the wheel of a car at a time. He was drunk when he was behind the wheel of a car, and that is a terrible choice. It is bad. Obviously, never fucking do that. But what has remained with me the longest about all of this is in reading the accounts, and you can easily find the reports of what happened and how this driver behaved on the road before killing these two men. It really feels as though he could have killed them without being drunk. It felt very reminiscent of some close calls that I've had even just this week biking in the city. And I think every single biker that has heard about it recognizes that this is unfortunately really typical behavior. I just wanted to take a moment to say that you don't have to be an asshole to be an unsafe driver. If you're listening to us say this right now and you've ever been behind the wheel of a car, you've been an unsafe driver. And that's not to attack you or anything like that. I also have been an unsafe driver behind the wheel of a car. That's why I try to avoid being behind the wheel of a car as much as possible, because it breaks your fucking brain. Cars break your fucking brain. It literally changes your brain chemistry and affects how you see the world around you, and it makes you an unsafe person in a lot of ways to everything that is not in a car. All car safety is just about the people inside it. And it doesn't have to be this way, and I don't have any smart conclusion to say at the end of this other than avoid driving as much as you can. Obviously, we can't all the time, and that's because that is the choice that our society has made over the last 100 years to build it up so that this is often the option that you have, and it has greatly affected our individual psyches and our national psyche. Just when you can take other modes of transit, when you can advocate for better transit, we have chosen as a society to structure transit this way, but it does not have to continue to be this way, and we do not have to continue choosing to live in a world where people are going to continue to be killed, not just die, but to be killed because of the way people behave, stone cold sober or not. We're going to get back to the silly bullshit now. I just wanted to say all that. That's all I have for that. I just really did appreciate that in Roger Sherman's newsletter, which, once again, I do recommend you check it out, and that is Read Raj.
Well, if not the Paralympics, what is making memories for you, James?
In lieu of things that are actively making memories for you right now, I'm actually in a position to recommend two things that if you happen to be listening to this when the episode comes out early Monday morning, you still have time to check in with. I'm going to start with the story that I have been cursed to continue to follow since I first brought it up here. We got to talk about butt buzzing once again. It is back. For those of you that are not familiar with the butt buzzing saga, Magnus Carlsen is more or less agreed upon to be like one of, if not the greatest chess players in the world right now. During a tournament with one Hans Niemann, he forfeited the match in protest because he firmly believed that Hans Niemann was cheating. Hans Niemann very adamantly saying that he was not. He said he'd be happy to play naked if so, and that led to all kinds of speculation that he was using vibrating anal beads in order to tell him what to do with chess. It got very silly. There were lawsuits, there were bans, other people were involved, like Hikaru Nakamura, who's another very good grandmaster and a streamer online. So it became this whole thing, and it has largely started to calm down a little bit since August 23 when that first popped off. Hans Niemann since been reinstated at chess.com, and he's once again able to compete in international competitions. So right now, we've got the Speed Chess Championships going on in Paris. They've got Blitz and Bullet Chess. The difference between the two being that for Blitz, you have 10 total minutes to compete over the entire match. And then for Bullet, it's 4 minutes. So that's been going on in Paris over several weeks. The semifinals are currently set. And on September 6th, a couple days after this comes out, there will be 2 semifinals. In one of them, we've got a very easy rooting interest because we have our boy Hikaru in that one, another player in this larger saga. We'll hope that he makes it through the final. And if he makes it through the final, he will be facing the winner of Hans Niemann versus Magnus Carlsen. It is their first competition since this entire dust-up began a year ago. I'm just thrilled to get a chance to watch chess and it be exciting. I will be at work that day, but you know what? They're live streaming it. I'm probably going to try and check it out because school has started up, so museums pretty slow right now. But that still pales in comparison to the other grudge match that we have this week. And I will not be working for this particular one because it is Labor Day. On Labor Day, we can watch, maybe outside of combat sports, the single greatest 1v1 grudge match that I think we have ever been privy to in the world of sport. And that is Unfinished Beef, Joey Chestnut versus Kobayashi. It'll be streaming live on Netflix on Labor Day, and this is basically Babe Ruth versus Barry Bonds. This is the guy who took a sport and redefined what was even possible in it. That is Kobayashi as the Babe Ruth analog when he basically, in his first couple years competing in the Nathan's Hot Dog Contest, doubled what the previous record had been, just completely rewriting what anyone thought you could do in competitive eating. And then we have Joey Chestnut, who did win all 3 of the matchups between these two in 2007, 2008, and 2009. One of those including an incredible eat-off at the end as a tiebreaker. There's a really good video on Secret Base breaking down that one in particular. And he is the Barry Bonds. He is the guy who, since someone else changed the game, he came along and just further rewrote the history books, not proportionally rewriting them quite as much, not shattering things, but still outdistancing them and putting everyone else very squarely in a competition for second place over and over again. Now, they have not been able to play one another since 2009 because of things that we've discussed in all the conversations we've had about competitive eating, and that is the exclusivity that is required for anyone that is signed on with Major League Eating, or MLE. Kobayashi had done that a long time ago, and so he's not been able to compete in Nathan's for years and years and years while Joey Chestnut has just racked it up. But now that Joey Chestnut is also no longer exclusive to MLE, and now that he has been effectively banned from Nathan's as well, we've got the two of these guys facing off in Las Vegas on a live broadcast. It's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern time, 12 p.m. Pacific time on this day. Now, admittedly, they are 40 for Joey Chestnut and 46 for Kobayashi, respectively. These guys are not in their prime necessarily, but they haven't really fallen off that much. And what is maybe the biggest thing behind this is that Kobayashi has announced he will be retiring after this. He estimates he's had probably about 10,000 hot dogs in his life, which I think is a new, Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours makes you
10,000 hours, yep.
Yeah, so I'd say Kobayashi's probably an expert at eating hot dogs at this point. But the two of them are facing off in what is going to be Kobayashi's final ever competitive eating appearance. Yeah, they're probably doing it for the money a little bit. Netflix, I guess, still has some money. Netflix has money, certainly, to commission a Vince McMahon documentary by Bill Simmons without any input from one Josie Reisman. That's been discussed online today, and I'll leave her to say any more about that. But because you, dear listener, I'm sure were so good about downloading this the second it showed up on your feed, 6:30 a.m. on Monday morning, you are in time to watch both of these this week. So check it out. Once again, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific, and I'm sure Netflix will continue to have it afterwards. And then, of course, Thursday, September 6th, you can see Hans Niemann and Magnus Carlsen face off for a shot at $175,000 for what it's worth. That is the winnings for the Speed Chess Championships. I don't know that there has ever been a week with 2 incredibly stupid grudge matches that so deeply appeal to me, and I hope some of you will be joining me in watching them.
Add both chess and competitive eating to the Olympics.
Yeah, you know what? Put them both in. Put chess boxing in too while we're at it. Somehow make it. How do we combine chess boxing and competitive eating? How do we make it so that when they're punching each other, they're also full of hot dogs?
Okay, I got it. So 1 round of chess, 1 round of boxing, then you have to eat 5 hot dogs in 30 seconds. Then you go back to chess, so you have a little bit of time to digest, and then you box again.
Are they permitted water at any point?
Yes.
Okay, and what are we calling this beautiful thing? Oh, wait, I've got it. Chess lunch boxing. There we go. You can have that one for free, Paralympics or Olympics, whoever wants to do it. We want everyone to be able to do this. We want the Paralympians to also get their shot at chess lunch boxing. That is what is making memories for the two of us right now. Something that made memories for us last week was another really fun conversation, much like our previous episode, going to be a lot about basketball. But with Diaz out of here on his own international odyssey, we decided to learn about someone else's international odyssey. And so we are going to go ahead and throw to a conversation that gives me the ability to finally say, folks, if we had a nickel for every professional athlete that's been on this show, we would now have 2 nickels. Ladies and gentlemen and everyone else, it's pretty well established at this point. We are fans of not just the G/D League, but also 2010's A10 basketball. We crave it here, and with that, we are incredibly thrilled to bring about today an Austin Toros and UMass Minutemen legend, Luke Bonner. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. It is a tremendous honor to be on here and get the invite. So thank you for thinking of me.
Yeah, of course.
And remembering me, a guy myself.
We'll talk potentially about your guy credentials later, but I think you've got some pretty strong ones. And a particular thing that I love about that is actually in between your UMass Minutemen career and your Austin Toros career. And that was not your pro start in Austin. If I'm not mistaken, shortly after graduation, you signed with a Hungarian team, Albakamp first. And yeah. I think the first time I've ever gotten a chance to ask someone about this, you had like some profile at this point and you're coming straight out of college. I've just always been really curious, like, what is the process of going from college to a foreign league? Like, are you being reached out to? Is that something where you guys are reaching out, trying to find an opportunity? I'm just fascinated by the steps that it takes to get from Massachusetts to Hungary.
So keeping in mind that this is 100 years ago at this point, basically, even I, leaving Massachusetts, as a regular ogre role player in the Atlantic 10, I had an agent, an American agent. For me, I guess I just went with my brother's agent, who was like a smaller time agent as well. And there's all these like European scouts kind of like everywhere. So there's like a European counterpart agent that exists as well. So the American agents kind of keep in contact there, and essentially, and this still happens to me today. They'll like hit someone up, be like, "Hey, this team needs a big man. This team needs a shooter or whatever." And then all the agents say, "How about these guys?" And usually you'll send over. I mean, this is 2009, I guess at the time, a somewhat misleading highlight reel that makes me look like I am, I don't know.
The kind of highlight reel that would have like Luke Bonner was a problem on the
correct,
on the,
right. And then you negotiate basically against that, and you try to get a deal in place, and that's how it goes. And like to this day, today I'll get like messages on LinkedIn of like, "Hey, this team in Japan needs a big that can do XYZ. Pay will be $8,000 a month. We're willing to take a rookie. Any recommendations?" And I'm like, I have no idea now. Like, I don't pay attention. But one of my friends who used to work at our basketball camp is now like actually taking all of these and like trying to like help teams around the world in a similar light. And he'll probably evolve into an agent that does this basically. So that's essentially, how it happened. When I came out of UMass, I don't remember where I had offers. I think I had like a few for less money in maybe better countries in terms of basketball. And I took this deal in Hungary, which I had no plans of ever living in Hungary, to be honest, at the time. And it was like, in hindsight, it was a pretty good setup. It was pretty legit, but I didn't know that yet, basically, because like when you're in college, everyone lies about overseas money and treatment and whatnot. and then you do it for a few years, and you kind of get an understanding of like how it actually works. So like looking back on it, like I had a really good setup, but I thought it was bad. I had a Serbian coach, which typically is terrifying, but I remember my coach. It was like we were like the NFL. Like we would play a game on Friday night, one game a week, and then we wouldn't have practice again until Tuesday. And basically we'd practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, play Friday. And I was like surprised by this because like you hear all the stereotypes of like Serbian coaches being insane and all this sort of stuff. And I actually talked to him about it one time, and he was just like, he's like, yeah, I used to be like that, but then I spent a couple of years in America, in Worcester, Massachusetts, by the way.
Nice.
And I realized like you guys got it right. Like you have holidays, you hang out, you drink alcohol, you smoke cigarettes, and I was like, do we? We were just chilling basically, and that was like a solid setup. I had like a few like round trip flights in my contract as well, so like I could fly friends or family out if I wanted to, and I never used them. That's one of my biggest regrets because like I basically never unpacked my bag because I assumed I would get fired at any point in time, which actually did happen.
So it wasn't thinking that like you were moving on to the next thing. It was thinking like this thing could just end at any moment.
Yeah, which did happen to me ultimately. But yeah, no, it was like a bizarre setup going to that, and like the city I was in, like Albacomp is a good team. This like we had Adam Hanga, who got drafted by the Spurs when he was like younger. He was like our like emerging player. In our like the city owns the gym basically. So like you can only play basketball when there is practice. Because like I got there, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go get some shots. I'm gonna work out or whatever. And I show up at the gym and there's like ballroom dancing going on, and I can't use the gym basically. So I got there in like August, right? We played a bunch of games. The last game I played in there, I probably had like 18 points, 11 rebounds, and we won on a Friday night or whatever. And then I get a call on a Sunday asking me to come to the gym. And I'm like, that's weird because nobody does anything on Sundays here. And they basically told me like I need to go away, essentially. And I was like really confused by that. But I learned that this Albacomp had like a really good veteran big who had a baby, basically, and wanted to stay in the States until the baby was a few months old. And then that guy decided he was ready to come back over. So they were like, all right, see you, Luke. Thanks for filling in.
You were basically a paternity leave fill-in.
Correct. And then they booked me a flight home. So it was like October. It must have been like mid-December when my flight was. But like when you're over there, they give you an apartment, a car, a phone, all that stuff. So that was all gone. They moved me to a hotel that's like in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. But I didn't mind. I was like, I assumed I would get picked up by a team in the Czech or somewhere around there, and just like being available would be good. And that didn't happen. I ended up, one of my friends from UMass, his girlfriend was studying abroad in Budapest. And I sent her like a Facebook message saying like, look, I'm here or whatever. Would love to kind of just connect. Because I was still going to get paid for like the time I was there. Like I worked that out with the team. And I was like, I'll be at St. Stephen's Basilica Steps from 2 to 4 next Thursday if you want to say hi. And it turned out she had like this like gigantic flat with like 5 bedrooms, and there's like 2 people living there. So I just stayed with them and like had a group of like American college friends for a month in Budapest while I'm still getting paid by this team to do nothing. And that ended up being like like one of the most amazing experiences of my life, to be honest. And then I came back and I didn't know, like I thought I was done basically. And I wasn't able to get another job. I decided to go down to Austin, Texas at that point. And I knew Quinn Snyder. He was coaching the Toros at the time. I obviously knew some of the coaches just from being around the Spurs. They didn't have any roster spots available. I stayed on my friend's couch, and they let me like come to practice essentially. And we were like, yeah.
How big of a couch we talking if you're crashing on a couch? Because you're not a small individual.
Well, I'm 7 feet tall, but I don't sleep standing straight up.
Okay.
I'm pretty good at I'm a fetal position sleeper, so that helps in that regard. No, but I jumped in practice, and it turned out I was like really good in this like Spurs kind of system, and then I was just there, and the backup center got hurt, and so they're just like, "You're up." Like two, like just so happened. So I ended up on the Toros. Essentially, that's how I was there. I was just like, I'm young. I'm gonna go, not be in Concord, New Hampshire. I'm gonna go be in Austin, Texas, and I wanted to be around music and stuff like that, but I'll still kind of just work out in case I can get a job next year. And then I ended up on the team, and that was like, so I did the Toros thing, and it was awesome. Honestly, I loved that was the D League days, but it was like a huge slice of like Americana, just like playing a D League schedule. Like I freaking loved it. Like playing a game in Bismarck, North Dakota, and then going to like Applebee's with like guys who can ball for half price apps, basically post game. Like it's amazing. It's just like the most ridiculous, amazing experience, you know?
The only D League game that I ever saw before it became G League was for the, I believe they were still the Delaware 87s at this point. And it was like bizarre leaving the University of Delaware, like basketball arena, and just being in a college town after having watched like the professional players, like you're saying. And just like, oh yeah, now we're in Newark, Delaware, I guess.
Right. Yeah, we're going to play in the Lakers practice facility tomorrow, and then I'm going to drive a van with everyone up to Bakersfield, California, and we're going to stay at a Holiday Inn there, and there's a little restaurant, truck stop restaurant next to us, and we eat all our meals there. It's called Zingo's, legendary, by the way. But yeah, it's just like, yeah, we're gonna hang out with Alonzo G and Squeaky Johnson in Bakersfield for a few days. You play 2-3 games and then fly back to Austin. It's the best, just the best, honestly.
So you're a pretty smart guy. You're all academic frequently throughout high school and college. And you've mentioned at this point a couple times, like feeling as though you might be on the edge of, is this going to be over? Am I going to get picked up again? Did you know, like when you played your last game, that it was your last game? Did you get to have that moment of like catharsis or closure when that came about?
I think I was done like well before I played my last game. No, because I ended up in Lithuania. I went there. One of my Toros teammates was over there, and we were buddies. Dave McClure, and he played at Duke. They needed a center, and he's like, "Come on over." And I had just signed I was gonna just stay in Austin and be like a career. Like I was like, I'm gonna be a 10-year D League guy. I don't care. Maybe I'll get one call up.
The
awesome.
D League Bull Durham or the D League.
Yeah, and I will live in Austin, Texas for free. That's worth a lot more than whatever my salary. Like I don't have to pay rent. That's great. All right, we're good enough there, right? And I get per diem. And I ended up. I decided to go over. I was like, all right, screw it. I'm going to Lithuania with Dave. Like, let's see what happens here. Like who cares? And I also didn't think I was an NBA player, even though like Quinn Snyder was like, you should stay in the D League because you might average 6 points, 3 rebounds a game in the D League, but you would probably do the same thing like in the NBA. Like me and my brother always talk about this. He's like, he would probably be the same player in a D League game that he is in an NBA game, just the way we play for some reason. It's like, oh yeah, you're a 7-footer with like, you got 6 hard fouls in you. You can go out there for a few possessions and they have to guard you on the 3-point line. You've done your job. And you've seen the league. He was right. Like these like specialists are making it. But I did not believe him. So I went over to Lithuania. And I think for me, I started to, I like the experience. There was very low moments being over there for sure. But I kind of reached a point where it felt very like my brain was like going nuts with like this like existentialism crisis like over there after being there 2 years, and it didn't feel foreign to me anymore, and that felt strange to me, and just like how much people care. Like Lithuanians, they really fucking care about basketball.
This was something I was curious about. Like basketball players are some of the biggest stars in the world here in the United States. I was curious, like what the local celebrity level that you were able to reach in Hungary or Lithuania over in the other side of the world was.
Hungary, no one cares, to be honest. Like,
Okay.
I mean, everywhere I go, I'm a gigantic ogre, so I can't avoid that. But for the most part, the town I was in is called Székesfehérvár. I can't even pronounce it. Basically, I never could.
White Castle.
What's that?
It's White Castle in
that's what,
in Hungarian.
Yeah. But like where I was, nobody spoke English, right? Like everyone spoke Hungarian, and their second language would be German. And Hungarians speaking Hungarian is like
Pretty
I think
unintelligible.
I read a book. I read a book that actually took place in Hungary about Dracula, and the I can't remember what it was, but the description they gave of like Hungarian was like, it sounds like a stampede of horses is running at you when people talk to you, and that's true. Like you could say something to me, and I'm like, I cannot say that. Repeat that back to you. Like Lithuanian people speak slowly and deeply, and I can understand it. But yeah, I mean, like I can't remember where we started with this question, to be honest. I'm going off the rails here. But yeah. Like, what was the original question here? You're gonna have to edit.
What is the level of like celebrity in those places?
Yeah. So in Hungary, in Hungary, the top sports are handball, water polo, honestly, women's basketball, and then men's basketball. Like Shaproni, I think, is the team. Like, they are stacked, like EuroLeague women's basketball team. Like they get more than any of the men's teams. So people generally didn't care. And I was like 40 minutes from Budapest, and it's a big city. That's amazing. No one really cares. The games aren't on TV or whatever. It's still like that's that. In Lithuania, everyone like basketball is it, right? Like there's no like soccer teams really. It's just basketball. So everyone knows who I am. I would say like it's also a place that doesn't get like American tourists or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So like they're not super used to that, I guess. And the reality is, like, when you're a basketball player like that, like I was a an exported product essentially from the United States in Lithuania to play basketball. Right. So people don't really like seeing you out and about having a good time, like, because you're there to play basketball, and like they know that basically. So that's like everyone knows who you are everywhere you go on that front. Like, I don't think people aren't stopping to like take photos or anything like that. But like, I'll go to the pizza joint. There's like a life-size cardboard cutout of me or whatever, outside it. And yeah. And I grew a mustache for a while over there, and everyone just made fun of me and called me Borat, basically. So
since retiring, you become relatively popular from being just kind of like a charming athletic presence online. Built like a lot of that up on Twitter. You and myself, as the arbiter of our show account, have migrated though from Twitter to Blue Sky. We have left Twitter during its crumbling era, and I'm curious for your opinion, because Twitter like drove so much of sports discussion for about a decade. And I'm curious if you think like we are losing something meaningful by that resource being essentially just hollowed out and reduced to a pretty useless thing, or if this is just kind of like another transition from print to radio to TV in terms of just like the media that we use to interact with sports. Do you think that there is something like fundamentally different about losing this massive forum that we had, where people like you can be just as interesting to people that follow sports as like your brother, an NBA player? Like, if there is something that is going to be irreplaceable about that, or if this is just kind of like the natural cycle of how we interact with sports discourse.
I think there's good and bad to it. Let's be honest, like, athletes are the worst people to follow on social media for the most part. Like,
often, yeah.
Like, none of them are good at like, or interesting.
Joey Votto. I'm going to give Joey Votto credit, and I'm going to pretty much agree with every single other person.
I don't even know who that is. So there you go. So to me, what's the worst loss, I guess, is like, I'm a big WNBA fan. Like I watch, and I feel like WNBA Twitter, like that was where the community was, right? Like it was like super powerful, and it was pulling people in, and it really drove like impact, honestly, on the sport. So I was like terrified when that went away. Like, where is this going? Is everyone going to find themselves kind of now? Unfortunately, it still exists. Like I personally, like I won't go on there. Like I removed it from my phone, all that stuff. But that's still that is still where like college coaches, trying to like engage with the recruits, like that's where you get all that. That's where a lot of the WNBA stuff is still happening, unfortunately. And I think Blue Sky, maybe it still can, but like I was trying to like reach out to people there, trying to figure out who it was, but like when the initial kind of wave of like Twitter screwed up was happening, and people are like, "Where do we go?" I just felt like there was a huge opportunity if Blue Sky would have like embraced sports like immediately, like pull in kind of like go get Asia Wilson to come here, go get, because like the WNBA players are really good at social media as well, right? And like, and I feel like they could have done that, immediately, and maybe it's still like better that it's kind of just like naturally evolved, and maybe that will happen at some point. But I feel like it's like really fragmented now, and it's a little bit kind of, it's a whole industry behind it that is up in the air, right? Like, honestly. So I'm kind of curious. I'm a little bit less in the space of like doing like the athlete partnerships and whatnot, but like building out campaigns around how they're doing stuff. And that's like real money for, especially like for WNBA players. And so like understanding like how to push stuff out with brands and whatnot it's a little bit more iffy now, to be honest.
For sure. No, I mean, because the real reason that like I ended up going on Blue Sky is just because like all the baseball writers that I followed went there, with that kind of being my top sport. But the writers are there. There's maybe one team there. I don't know a single baseball player that's made it there. And so like while there's some of the, I think you're right that like the people that talk about sports maybe migrated, but like the people involved with sports really have not, largely. And
Right. Well, generally, most of the athletes at this point only do stuff if there's like financial incentive to.
Yeah.
And that doesn't exist yet. And I think that's part of what makes Blue Sky special right now, right? Like there's no influencers. There's none of that bullshit. Right. And it's great, and that's great. I don't know. Like I still kind
paradise.
I can get my stupid takes off, and I don't know. And like I feel like I've actually engaged with like real dialogue, and if it's just like 5 people kind of watching a random game that I'm watching too, it's still enjoyable.
Something that you said on Blue Sky to kind of like wrap up this portion has been kicking around in my head for a couple days. You had a recent like mini thread talking about the mindset that you had in the liminal space following games, which you've already kind of touched on here, like that moment of finishing up a game, whether it was in college, whether it was in the D League, whether it was in Europe, getting on the bus ride with some like kind of crummy sandwich, and then just having those rides to sit with those existentialist questions of like what's going on. And the thing that I was really curious, knowing we were going to get to talk to you after seeing that, was what remains the same through all of those different bus rides from Massachusetts to Texas to Hungary to Lithuania, and like what kind of changed through the years for you in that time of what you were considering, what was like eating up your thoughts in those moments.
Yeah, I think a misconception about like being on a team or whatever is that you're always busy, and you actually you spend a lot of time just like with your own thoughts, basically. So like I've always said like if I played a really good game, right, I'd feel good stepping on the bus. I feel like I would always like I think too much is probably why I'm not an NBA player. But like by the time I'm getting off the bus, I would always kind of start to wonder like why do people care about this, to be honest? Sure. Or this doesn't matter. Like this literally doesn't matter like at all. Like I'm gonna get to be on a Remember That Guy podcast in 10 years or 20 years or whatever because I did this, but I don't know. It's just like some people get like so mad, and like especially now with like sports betting and all that. Like I would just be like, what are we doing here, as an athlete? But like it's also like a beautiful experience in a sense too, of like just I don't know. It's like this like romantic time in your life where like you're young, you have no real responsibility too, and this is like you're on the road and you're going places, and like what an experience to play in St. Joe's like old beat up dank ass gym with like a 10-foot by 10-foot locker room, or Olean, New York at St. Bonaventure, right? And like these showers that stay on for 8 seconds at a time and have ice cold water. So like you have to shower, you have to keep pushing the button. It's just like I don't know, just like all these kind of like little experiences, and like you see people everywhere and people yell shit at you and call you names or whatever. And I always just thought that was like, I don't know, there's something like romantic about it, because I would yell back sometimes, you know, but like
We'll take a moment to apologize if any of our Temple Owls said anything inappropriate.
Temple, I always like did what like I never had a problem with Temple.
Good.
But yeah. So I do remember like one time we were playing at Dayton, and some guy just kept yelling at me, like saying like he did stuff with my sister or whatever. But this guy, like before the game, like it's like an hour before the game, I'm just like shooting around, horsing around or whatever. And the guy didn't know my sister was coaching at Louisville at the time, which isn't that far from Dayton, that she was going to be showing up within the next 5 minutes to like come say hi to me. So I literally like was able to like bring her over to the guy and be like, hey, what were you just saying about my sister, kind of thing. And so like it's just like little moments like that. I don't know. I always got a kick out of kind of like trolling back, I guess.
So that dude, we're referring to him as a guy, but that's not the kind of guy we're talking about. That guy sounds like an asshole, frankly. We do want to talk about guys, and you wanted a little clarification on that. Xavier, if you had to sum it up, to take over talking here for me for a second, what would you say is a guy?
So guys are interesting in that when we first started this show, the way we thought about it was if someone went up to you at a bar and mentioned someone's name, you'd be like, oh, I remember him. We've kind of tweaked that a little bit, and there's been like different parameters of what it takes to be a guy. If you're in a more popular sport, like if you were in the NBA or NFL, then maybe it's someone who made one All-Star game and was kind of a fan favorite or so, but never really a star. Or if you're talking about someone from a different type of league, maybe it's someone who spent their whole career in the D League or the G League, but really lit it up and was great. Or the Greek League, as James said, or any of the Adriatic leagues, and someone who was a star on a smaller circuit. But it's really just someone who we feel doesn't get the recognition from the wider world that they should, based on the work that they've put in.
So is it like more that, or is it more like someone who you never think about now, but like if you hear the name, it's going to evoke like some sort of like strong like feel. It's going to take you immediately back to like a moment in time.
I think that's another very strong way to look at it, kind of like guys as a almost Proustian trigger for whatever memories that you have associated with them. I love any time I can use the word Proustian. But yeah, like it's a very, we said this last week to our friend Julie Kliegman, I'll say it again to you. It's a very kind of Justice Potter Stewart, you can't necessarily define it, but you know it when you see it thing. There's all kinds of categories that we've associated with one-time All-Stars, no-time All-Stars.
Where are you at in terms of like Hall of Fame inductions? Like has anyone been inducted yet, or are you just taking nominees? Will there be an induction?
There's an expansive Hall of Guy. I believe I did the count recently, and it's like I think we're up to 120 or so. Like there's a guy episode.
Can you give me a few examples of guys so I don't repeat?
Well, Darius Washington Jr., I don't believe we inducted him, but like he was someone that we spoke on recently, a former teammate of yours, if I'm not mistaken, and a former teammate of your brother's. Going still with basketball, we've talked with the Greek League. That was a very specific reference to Nikos Gallus, longtime Greek League MVP. We've got
Vlade Divac was inducted.
Okay, I took some umbrage with the Vlade Divac nomination, but I was outvoted. So like that's fine, but I'm not necessarily going to use that as an exemplar.
Lukumba Mute?
Yeah. Lukumba Mute. Yeah. Okay, so it's guys that you're familiar with, but you might not quote unquote know them.
I think this is going to be the easiest thing in the world. Like there's only one. There's one name to give you, and it's Kevin Pitsnoggle.
Ooh, that is not a name I'm familiar with, but it's a name I like very much.
It rings a bell, but I do not remember. I don't remember him, and I'm very intrigued right now.
Oh, you're too young, maybe. So I went to West Virginia first. Kevin Pitsnoggle is from Martinsburg, West Virginia, small town West Virginia, about 6'11", bunch of tattoos. and was an absolute terror out of nowhere. So I went to West Virginia. My logic in going there was like, I'm going to go play for John Beeline. He lets bigs chuck threes. They sucked my senior year of high school, like won like 8 or 12 games or something the whole season. So my logic was, I will go to a Big East school. I will average 9 points, 5 rebounds, and I'll play on ESPN and whatnot because I'm in the Big East. I'll play in a big arena. That's cool. And then I'll get an invite to some sort of NBA camp. And I'm really good in individual workouts. And surely I can be the 15th guy on the worst team in the NBA. That's what every basketball player thinks.
You can get in at the end of the bench.
Right. I can be the worst player on the worst team in the NBA, and I'll still make $1 million. So then I get there, and we were amazing. And I didn't touch the floor, basically, because Kevin Pittsnogle basically took the entire nation by storm. Essentially, like Jay-Z is talking about Kevin Pittsnogle in 2005, Jay-Z.
What did he rhyme Pittsnogle with?
No, I mean in an interview. He got interviewed about what was your favorite March Madness story, and it was it's Kevin Pittsnogle, this West Virginia team, basically. And so that's my Hall of Guy. I think we have another guy from that team too, who would be Mike Gansey as well, who I'd put up there.
I'm looking through this, and we've immediately got some incredibly good marks in his favor. We've got someone from an all-star team for a non-NBA American Basketball Association, the CBA. That's immediately incredibly high marks. An all-star with the Pittsburgh Explosion, spelled just X-P-L-O-S-I-O-N. We've got international journeyman. We have yet another Austin Toros legend. Did you guys get to overlap there at all too?
No, I had no idea. I didn't even know that.
He was selected in the 2017 league draft.
He didn't play that. So this is the bizarre thing about this. So my freshman year at West Virginia. You look this up. We were up, I think, 25 points at halftime against Louisville in the Elite Eight, right? And we lost in overtime. We should have won at the buzzer. We were literally 1 point away from being in the Final Four. So in my head, I was like, oh, surely I can go to the Atlantic 10 and be the best player in the Atlantic 10 if I can. Because I was good when I played in West Virginia. I had no idea that system was the whole reason I was effective whenever I played there. That team, my West Virginia team, nobody really had anything crazy for post college careers. Honestly, There's a lot of coaches that came out of it. But then, you look at, my UMass team, we never made the tournament. We had, 3 guys who, made NBA rosters between Gary Forbes, Stefan Lasme, Tony Gaffney. And we have guys who are still freaking playing in, the Euro. We had a bunch of guys, we're on, really good EuroLeague teams and had great careers. And so it was just, so that's why, I came to Pittsnogle because, his moment, in college, this guy was completely feared by by everyone, but for some reason that it just happened in college, and I feel for the right listener, whenever they hear that name, they're going to get a big smile and wonder what's that guy up to today. Basically,
the GM of the Cleveland Cavaliers was on this team.
Yeah, Mike Gansey would be another guy I would put out there. Transferred from St. Bonaventure.
Pittsnogle does make the Cavs Summer League team at one point as well. This is definitely one where we lament that Diaz is currently in another continent, because I have to imagine he would have some recognition for Pittsnogle. But we're starting with the name. We are starting with, you're not kidding about the tattoos, goodness gracious. And this is a heck of a career to just look at as I'm running through. We've also got another guy we've talked about with some other sports, Dr. Kevin Dyson, formerly of the Tennessee Titans, famous for not being able to get across the goal line in that Super Bowl against the Rams. And one of our favorite things about Dr. Kevin Dyson is his long academic career after that as a teacher and as a school principal and all of that. Pittsnogle.
He is now a principal.
Yeah, and leaving in the middle of still, sure, not necessarily productive at the highest levels, but he had been with a team, the Albuquerque Thunderbirds, before he left them to just go do that. And that answering to a higher calling, I think, is another very strong mark in the favor of a guy.
I Kevin Pittsnogle laid the foundation for the modern big man, basically. He hit 400 threes in college in that time period. That was completely unheard of.
He's the guy that Brooke Lopez built his entire game around when he made that big shift. Also, apparently a car dealer in his hometown, if this page is to believe, which, like, the most stereotypical post-playing career I think you could possibly...
Yeah, it's like the Kenny Powers path.
The Stetson Bennett Kia dealership or whatever that Shutdown Fullcast is always talking about.
If a 6'11" guy is trying to sell you a car, you're probably going to end up buying it. I imagine he would be very successful at doing that.
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine like the test drive where the salesperson like rides shotgun for anything other than like a gigantic SUV would be pretty comical.
Yeah, how far back do those seats go?
Yeah, so there's actually going to be, there's just thinking about that team, like we're 24, 25 now, so my freshman, like we're coming up on the 20-year mark of that tournament run, so if you weren't kind of like diehard college basketball fan when you were 10 years old, you may have missed out on the legend, but I would definitely jump on YouTube, enjoy some clips there, man. Treat yourself.
Like, I was following that season, but I was following that season because at the time, the Terps were very good. I am a Baltimore resident, and so it's like the only time that college basketball has been meaningful in the state of Maryland, basically, in my life, other than the UMBC upset over Virginia.
Who was Maryland, then?
It's not the Grievous Vasquez era in Maryland. I'm trying to remember who their was.
It's right before that.
Yeah.
I played with Eric Hayes. He was on my team in Lithuania.
Okay.
There's a guy.
That's a guy. That's a guy I remember.
You know who is also a guy, I can't remember his name, who was the guy in Maryland, the big afro that would always get dunked on.
Oh my
Best personality ever, though. He had the most electric personality. He was awesome. My sister was an assistant coach on the Maryland women's team for a bit, so I used to go down there in the summers, and that was when Grievous and Eric Hayes were going into Maryland. And Maryland had a McDonald's All-American, I can't even remember the kid's name. That was like the same class. And Ty Lawson would always would be there playing pickup, like all those guys would be playing pickup or whatever. But I used to play pickup with them whenever I'd be visiting my sister in the summer. And honestly, like playing pickup with them, I was like, I'm better than everyone on Maryland, and I thought I should have gone there.
I will say again, there have not been many times that anyone in this state has cared about Maryland basketball.
Yeah, right. Back in when I was a kid, Maryland basketball was it, man.
Yeah, because that was still like
Lonnie Baxter.
Mm-hmm. And that would have been post Len bias. If I'm trying to figure out when you're a kid, but like still running off of like having the kind of player.
Did Chris Wilcox go there?
I believe so. Chris Wilcox.
Oh, you know who? All right, so sorry. While we're on Maryland, you know who is a guy? Like I would put him and like Malik Hairston together as like, I would say Malik Hairston, Tyrese Rice, and James Gist. James Gist as like three of the most amazing basketball players who didn't. Well, Tyrese never played like a possession in the NBA. James, it is Gist, right? Like I always say Gist, but I don't know if it's Gist. That guy was unbelievable. Like, how is he not a forever NBA player is like insane to me.
He's still playing right now, apparently. He's in Indonesia.
Ooh, that's a fun
one. But
like,
he's like 6'9", athletic as shit, could shoot, like played defense, block shots, like did everything.
Just huge stretch four.
Right.
Oh, his Wikipedia page is great. Italy, Russia, Serbia, Turkey, Spain, Greece, Serbia again, then Germany. He went to Uruguay for a while, and now he's in Indonesia. That is someone who just wants the ball. They don't care where; they're just going to keep playing. That's phenomenal.
He's got to be close to 40 at this point. Bombale Osby is the other guy I was thinking of from Maryland.
Oh yes, much like they would do eventually in Cleveland, the NBA with Anderson Varejao wigs. They would do like Afro wigs for him occasionally. This is also just one quick question back to you, if I'm asked. Any country you ever wish you played in? This is we're listing off these like dozens of James just did play in.
Yeah, so like I think one thing that I advise players now is like when you feel like you're done, consider just signing somewhere you want to hang out for a little bit. Like even if the league is shit, right? Like I could have gone to Malta, like just like anywhere that's like super cool. That's like a bucket list kind of place to visit, and get them to pay for you to go out, put you up wherever. I wish I just went somewhere I wanted. That was like bucket list tourism experience or whatever, and just gone, lived there for free, and just like done the old, I'm never going to show up to practice. I'm not going to care. And you can fire me and I'm going to have a good time for a few weeks and go home, basically. I wish I had done that.
Let's take a moment now to kind of, Xavier, you and I collect our thoughts on Kevin Pittsnogle. I admit, not a guy that I could quote unquote remember, but a guy that I am very compelled by. Do you have any concerns on that?
See, I actually had a different idea, and I know this is a little rare for us, but just based on how this conversation has gone, what if we just bring in and honor that entire 2004-2005 West Virginia basketball team?
Okay. Let's see. We do have exactly one team. We have the Jamaican men's bobsled team, but I think this is a solid second team.
It's a team of guys that did something very special and gives our friend Luke here some phenomenal memories 20 years later.
It was a bizarre season. Like, we started off 10-0. We cracked the top 25 for the first time. And our first Big East game is at Villanova. Villanova's unranked at the time. They finished the season probably like top 4 in the country, but they were unranked for some reason. And this is like Kyle Lowry's freshman year. Right? Mm-hmm. It's like Kyle Lowry, Randy Foye, Mike Nardi. And they basically played 5 guards, essentially, right? They beat the ever-living shit out of us. And it was like they put the game on ESPN Classic and like made it look old and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I want to say we lost by either 38 or 48 points. And at the time, it was like the largest margin of victory by an unranked team against a ranked team ever. They killed us. And then we ended up, we also lost to Marshall, which like you can't do if you're like that next day. Like I remember people like
in West Virginia, I would imagine that is
like someone like spits out the window while I'm walking down the street. I'm like, are they spitting at me or is that like random because we lost to Marshall kind of thing? But we ended up our next 7 games, we went 2-7. So we went from 10-0 to 12-7 basically. And we were like, we didn't get a bye in the Big East tournament even. Like we had to play the first day of the Big East tournament. And we made it all the way to the Big East. Like, we beat everyone. We beat Providence. We beat BC, who was really good at the time. We beat Villanova in like a crazy like overtime. Mike Yancey had to hit 2 free throws down 1 with like 0.1 seconds left, basically. And then we lost to Syracuse, who was amazing at the time, and then the Big East championship. So it was just like the whole season was like super bizarre, and just like a group of guys who like just like got along and never got kind of shook and just kept going. And we didn't like Nike had to send us all new stuff once we made the Sweet 16 because we were on all like the bootleg Nike gear and whatever. Like, so yeah, no, it's crazy.
Randy Foye, another Hall of Guy inductee, just while we're on that. But Xavier, I think I like what you're thinking here. I've got the roster pulled up in front of me. If you would like to do the honors, feel free to throw it to me whenever you need me to list the members.
Okay, well, I think we're all in agreement here that for this very special episode of Remember That Guy, we are going to break our own rules and remember an entire team. And we have to start with the person on this call right now, Luke Bonner. And then I'm going to go down the list of everyone else that I see on this roster of the 2004-2005 West Virginia men's basketball team. Mike Gansey, Kevin Pittsnogle, Tyrone Sally, Johannes Herber, Patrick Bayline, Dior Fisher, J.D. Collins, Darius Nichols, Frank Young, Duriel Price, and Brad Byerson. Welcome that entire West Virginia team to the Hall of Guy.
There you go. Dior Fisher, another one right there. He was a monster. He actually had a really good like overseas career. He averaged like 3 blocks a game.
Well, we will not block him from coming in. We are more than happy to welcome him and all of those Mountaineers, including yourself, in, Luke. Welcome to the Hall of Guy, man.
It's a big moment. We'll have to get this posted, like some sort of like a Tipton edit, some sort of graphic that
We'll have a plaque.
You will get it. There will be a graphic. You will get a plaque the day that this episode comes out.
the official WVU men's basketball Instagram account can
I will
post.
offer this to you, Luke. If you want to select just one picture of the roster to send to me, I will use that picture as the picture for the plaque. Whatever you want to put forward as the visual representation of that Mountaineers squad, that is the visual representation that will live on in our hall.
Oh man, I'm looking at the team photo right now. Some big shorts.
I forgot how big the shorts were.
Luke, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, Luke, congratulations. Welcome. If people have enjoyed listening to you today, is there anything you want to plug before we head out where people can check out more of your musings?
Nothing else to plug. Just say, if you live near a WNBA market, go to a game. It's the best time ever.
Go Aces, go Liberty for Xavier. And hey, also go check out bit.ly/remember that guy. All one word, all lowercase. I'm just going to always mention that.
I do have one more thing to plug, actually. Is announced UMass is going to be moving to the MAC. So please contact your local congressperson, senator, and write them a letter encouraging UMass to keep Atlantic 10 basketball intact and tell all the Atlantic 10 schools to stop making upgrades to your basketball gyms. What makes that conference special is the authenticity of the old gyms, the Rose Hills, all these old gyms that no longer exist anymore. Let's stop trying to be like the high major conferences. Let's keep that aesthetic, that old school raw Atlantic 10 aesthetic that is extremely Instagrammable, by the way. We got to preserve that legacy of Atlantic 10 basketball. It's super special and it doesn't exist anymore. And I hate to see everything getting kind of like updated in that sort of way.
Let the A10 be the A10. I appreciate that exhortation.
Yeah.
One last time, we do thoroughly appreciate you coming on. We appreciate producer Craig and all the coders behind him. We appreciate musical director Don Ham for that lovely theme music. And most of all, we do appreciate you, dear listener, for joining us once again. We should be back with a normal episode next week as Diaz returns from his international odyssey. But until then, I've been your host, James.
I've been the very special guest, Xavier.
I am a blue sky elder, early adopter, former basketball player, sort of Hall of Guy inductee, I guess.
No, sort of.
I'm Luke Bonner.
And I'm Diaz, reporting live from Italy. And as they call our show in this country, ricorda quel ragazzo.